Hello, here we go. It's the Copeye Podcast.
What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to another Copeye Podcast, and to have a little chat about Sunday's tiny game against Man United at Old Trafford. I'm Mick Moran, and I'm joined by David Lynch, journalist Dave Lynch. How are you doing, Dave?
Yeah, not too bad. As we were sort of saying off there, the joys of having a pint back. So, outside of work, everything's a little bit better than it was. A bit more to do, and looking forward to getting fans back in the ground, and positive things are happening now. So it's I'm probably in a better mood than last time we spoke, I imagine.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you were miserable last time, I think. No, well, I'm just thinking. Actually, is this your hat-trick appearance? Because if it is, we've got a special flyaway coming your way with Man and Jay's name on it.
Yeah, that's it exactly. I want one of the I want a flyaway sent here, please. If you can just send it deflated, if that's easier, and I'll just blow it up myself.
Yeah, well, we've just been talking about the Champions League trophy, so I'll have a word with Jay, and he might be able to. We can do that special parade around Anfield. No, that we can't actually do it for real. But let's crack on. We've got before what we do on these shows now. Before we get into the footy, we try and have a little laugh with a little random question. And I mean, this one isn't random as such; it's footy related, but it's from Zubin David on Twitter, and the question is, if Liverpool and Man United had an option to swap one player from each team based on the existing fitness and availability, who would you pick? So yeah, it's a difficult one, that, Dave. What do you think on that one?
I think for Liverpool, the obvious answer is that the issues at centre half, isn't it? So you've got to pick one, and I know he maybe gets a little bit of stick, and he's perhaps more highly rated than he deserves to be, but I still genuinely do think that Harry Maguire is a decent centre half. But maybe he's not a leading centre half in a title winning team, but for Liverpool's aims at the moment, getting in top four, he's definitely that level. I think he's a fairly high quality player, and so I think Harry Maguire, if Liverpool could get hold of him till the end of the season, they'd probably fancy the chances of top four a little more than the current options they've got. The other way is, I'm trying to think. There are a few issues with that Manchester United team, I think. But to be honest, if they were going to pick any player, I think they would probably quite like to take Mo Salah, wouldn't they? The form he's in. I think their forward line, there's some quality there, but none of them at that high level of consistency that Salah shows. None of them that you'd probably put in the world class bracket, even if a few of them have got that potential. And Cavani's maybe just a bit past that now, isn't he? So I think Mo Salah would be the one they quite like to take out of the Liverpool team.
Yeah, I agree with you on Harry Maguire. I mean, when he was at Leicester, he is a good player, isn't he? I just think now there's so many memes about him being like a fridge for Man United, and he turns like a bus, it turns like a tank, and this is just kind of snowballing into what people think he actually is, and he's not. I mean, he's a good centre half. I don't think he's amazing, but like you said, he would be good for us in this moment in time. Yeah. Obviously, with what we're gonna come on to Nat Phillips and obviously Kabak and that later on in the show. But he would, like you said, he would go straight in there. But Dan's just said in the comments they can have Davies, won't miss him. I'll take Greenwood if that's allowed. Yeah, Greenwood. Oh, I'm jealous they've got Greenwood. He is just reminds me of Sturridge so much, the way he can just glide on that left foot. Quality, isn't it? But I think I'd agree with you on both of those, Dave. I mean, them having Salah would be a scary prospect, because I think with Bruno Fernandes as well, as much as I hate the fella, he is very good at in that creative role. So he'd get a half full of assists for a Mo Salah, wouldn't he? But yeah, thank God we don't have to actually do that. That's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. I don't actually want Harry Maguire, so let's just leave it as it is.
I was going to say, that's going to get clipped and put all over Twitter, that. Dave Lynch wants Maguire at Liverpool. The usual shit you get tagged in all the time on Twitter. But anyway, Dave, let's jump into the actual game then. Obviously, Klopp hasn't done his press conference yet, but I just wanted to speak to you about Fabinho and his importance in midfield. I know you did a piece on Tuesday for Liverpool.com relating to his where he's been featured in this season. Obviously 15 games for Liverpool. His record at centre-back reads as 1-1 drawn 3, lost 5. in midfield. It's 1-4 drawn, 1 lost one, and then you go on to say on this evidence his starting place in the centre of the park should be non-negotiable. And I mean, I agree with you completely, and I know you got a lot of comments on that going, well, who's gonna go and centre half if we've got anyone, and just a lot of people in your comments like there usually is. But yeah, I agree with you completely. If obviously we're going to come on to Nat Phillips, but if Nat Phillips is fit, then that's him and CDM. It's the easiest decision you're going to make, isn't it? In terms of how much he improves our game. I mean, it's no coincidence that the last 2 games we've drew and he's had to be in centre half.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what? I was just stunned, really, to be honest, that Klopp took him out of there. I know that injury to Nat Phillips made things even more difficult for him, and he's had so many selection issues, hasn't he? In the lack of consistency at centre half all season, so it's not an easy call to make. But the fact that Liverpool so notably improved, the best period all of this year has been when Fabinho was put back in centre half, and Klopp sort of took one on the chin there, because he's never really sort of shown that he's fancied Nat Phillips, has he? I don't think. I think it was a last resort to put him in the team. He's never really sort of shown a great deal of faith in him, and the fact that he went back to that was an acknowledgement that Fabinho was so important in that position. And Pep Linders gave an interview, didn't he, talking about how important he was to the team to be there, and sort of it seemed to me like an acceptance that, okay, we may end up with a weaker centre-half pairing, but we can mitigate so much of that by just shutting down the middle of the pitch. And Fabinho is key to that, gives him so much control. And I think, the fact he moved away from that just after the injury to Phillips shows, he must really not rate Ben Davies at the moment, or think he's ready, and also to not think that Reece Williams should be thrown back in as well says a lot about him. So it's, I was surprised by it. And I think if Phillips doesn't make it, and I thought he might because he was pictured in sort of doing some individual sessions earlier in the week, but it doesn't seem to have been spotted at all in the team sessions since then, which is a bit concerning. If he doesn't come back in, I don't think Old Trafford is the place that you maybe say to Ben Davies, okay, you're coming back in, and I don't think you drop Reece Williams back in. So it looks like he's going to stick with Fabinho, and I just think Liverpool are a weaker team. I think these last 2 games you've seen that complete lack of control in the middle. Even though they conceded late on in both those games, I think they were asking for trouble all the way through them, where it was so easy to counter-attack them. And I think with Manchester United, whose biggest strength is counter-attacking and moving the ball quickly through the sections of the pitch, I think that's going to be really, really difficult for them.
Yeah, and I just want to come on to what Doug's just said in the comments. Since 2004, we have won twice in 17 years at Old Trafford. That is just horrendous, isn't it, in terms of Liverpool's perspective? That's just, and like you said, Nat Phillips being fit it's mad the way that is so key. It shouldn't be key when you start the season. If you told us all that Nat Phillips, who hasn't played a game yet, is going to be the rest of the season is going to be pinned on the hopes of him being fit for a game against Man United, you would have laughed in the face. But that's where we're at the moment. And I mean, like you said, he wasn't pictured in training, and if they're not pictured in training, all of a sudden they're presumed dead, aren't they? Because it was the same with Hotter last week, wasn't it? Where there was like, oh, Hotter's out. Oh, he's out for the season and this and that, and just like, fucking hell. And then Klopp just goes, yeah, he's fit. He's fine. And then just like everything, just like the dust just settled straight away. But I mean, do you think Nat Phillips will be fit for this one?
Yeah, the thing with the Jota one was there was no indication whatsoever that he wasn't fit. I got a load of fantasy football fanatics tweeting me about that one and worrying about whether he was fit or not. But I didn't think even in the build-up to that there was any sort of suggestion that he wasn't going to be fit. So it didn't seem like one to worry about. And then Klopp obviously ended up confirming that was the case. And then... But with Nat Phillips, the fact that he hasn't been in training beforehand, I know he's been doing those bits of individual sessions. It doesn't look great that he's not been pictured in the team session. I think that's a little bit worrying. So, there's still time, isn't there? And hopefully Klopp has good news about it in his press conference tomorrow. But at the moment, it doesn't look particularly promising. And like you say, it's concerning because he's become almost the absolute key man, hasn't he? And that acknowledgement that maybe Liverpool don't need the strongest team, the centre-half pairing they can put together in terms of individual players, but just having him makes the team as a whole better because of what that does to Fabinho. And yeah, it would be a blow if he's out.
Yeah, it definitely would be. I mean, Dan's just put a comment in saying he'd play Reece Williams at United, redemption shot for him from the cup, and we've got nothing to lose. I think I'm agreeing with you though, Dave. To be honest, I would be very hesitant. As much as I want Fabinho back into midfield and Reece Williams coming in would do that, I think that would. It's a lot of pressure on him, isn't it? Up against a very strong United front line with a lot of pace, and that's the one thing he lacks. And I don't think it's fair on him to come in. I mean, like Phillips and Kabak have been great, and obviously Fabinho having to cover there hasn't been ideal. I mean, it was at first when he first went in there, he was really good, wasn't he? We were all like, "Oh, this." I even remember saying on a podcast that could this be his new position, like going forward? Like I don't know if I was just going absolutely fucking mad because the way the world is, and I was just thinking, oh, maybe we can get a defensive mid in the summer and leave Fabinho at centre half. But then when he goes back into midfield, you realise, just like you said, like it's his presence in there, and it's the cutting off the passing lanes, and it's just having that presence and awareness to be in the right place at the right time to make those what would be very dangerous attacks into kind of just he breaks it up, and then we're on the break, and it's little things like that, isn't it? Where it's kind of he is just so pivotal to all those things.
Yeah, and when you put him into centre half as well, it's not just a case of maybe partnering him with Van Dijk, which you could easily get away with. I think Fabinho is a classy centre half. Let's not get that wrong. I don't think he's a poor player there at all. But when he's in the sixth position, I think he's at worst top 3 in the world in that position. Literally just a game changer for Liverpool. So I think it's absolutely crucial that they get him back in there as soon as possible, and just sort of have to accept that whatever they put out at centre half isn't going to be great. I think on the Reece Williams front, I just don't expect it, just on the basis that Klopp is quietly, isn't he, a bit of a conservative manager. I just don't think he will go down that route, because he does play things safe. As much as he's got this reputation for fantastic football, I think defensive solidity is his number one priority generally. So I just don't expect Williams or Davies to be walking out if Nat Phillips isn't fit, which means bad news for those of us who would like to see Fabinho in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of clamouring, wasn't he? Once we got Kabak and Phillips was kind of a part of the team, to get Fabinho back in it, because Fabinho kept playing centre half, didn't he? And we were all like, well, just put Fabinho back into midfield and we'll start winning games again. And then that happened. And obviously people on Twitter like, oh, why didn't he do this earlier? But I think it's like you said, Dave, that he wants that solidity in there. And if he only knows a certain partnership, he's not going to then change it up like quite drastically, especially for a big game like this. But there's another question here that I wasn't going to ask, but it is a good question, to be fair. 1893 Reds podcast. Would you start Mane for this game? I mean, there's been a lot of shit flying Sadio Mane's way, hasn't he? A lot of people saying he's finished. He's a shadow of the player he was. He hasn't got that ability anymore. It's gone. And I'm just thinking that's a load of shit, because it's clearly, in my opinion, it's a form thing, and it's a. Do you agree with that? That it's just a form issue, and he'll be back to the same old Sadio next year.
I think he needs the end of the season. I don't think he's going to recover before then. I think the amount of football he's had to play over the last few years has taken a big toll on him. The fact that this season it's been particularly relentless, and I think he's getting in his own head a little bit. He's hesitant in areas where he would have been so confident and just getting his shots away straight away. He's taking an extra touch. There was one where he gets played in the last game actually against Newcastle, where he tries to sort of take it round the goalie where you feel like he would have just hit it first time and run onto it and finished it. I think that sort of just summed up how the season's gone, and it's only really sort of come to the fore recently. I think Firmino was getting the brickbats, wasn't he, earlier in the season about his form, and I think Mane is the one who's taking the most heat at the moment. And to be fair, I sort of advocated for maybe Jota to take his place for a couple of games, because I think Jota's sort of played himself into that, and I think he deserves a run. He's been really bright, hasn't he, since he come in. So, but again, we're talking about the conservatism of occasionally of Jurgen Klopp, and I think he would quite like to go into this one with that front three again. I think that'll be on his mind. I think ripping that up now might not be in his thinking. Maybe if that's something that happens going into next season, he'll do it. But I think for now, Mane's. He's got so much credit in the bank, hasn't he, and knows the system, and he, regardless of the fact that things aren't coming off for him, absolutely works his socks off. So, I wouldn't be too surprised to see him on the team sheet.
Yeah, and like you said, it's not going to be like Klopp to like if Klopp went with all four, I think we'd all be shocked, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
In a game of that magnitude, in a game at Old Trafford, especially where someone in the comments, I think it was Doug, that said our record's been pretty dreadful, to be honest. But just want to get back to a quick question on the centre back thing again, Dave. And Ben Davies, what are your thoughts on this and what is he a mirage? Is he a real person? Is he gonna play any games? What's your thoughts on the signing and the fact that he's still not made an appearance yet?
Yeah, a bizarre one. I think maybe it's looking very much like a case of Liverpool just seeing what was out there in the market in terms of, knowing they could make almost a quick profit on a player. I'd be it's got to the point where I'd be very surprised if Ben Davies is here next season. I know it's all the way in, throughout his very short Liverpool career, it's been a difficult moment to throw him in. There's been no obvious games where you'd say, okay, he's got to start this one. But the fact he's not even making the squad sometimes, I think suggests that he's not really in the manager's plans. And I think it was an easy buy to make in the sense that, okay, we can spend 2 million or whatever it was, a very nominal fee. Take a look at him, see if the manager fancies him. If not, we know what clubs were willing to pay for him otherwise if his contract had been running a little bit longer. So I think that's one that Liverpool are just going to flip and get some easy profit in, which is, I suppose that if they can do that and they can quickly get him off the books, then that's not worked out too badly for the player either. You just hope it doesn't get prolonged and he doesn't get made to hang around just because they can't find a buyer who will meet their fee, because that would be really unfair on the player, wouldn't it, to give them that chance and then, well, say that you were giving them that chance and then not allow them to play and then keep them hanging around and without the prospect of first team football. So yeah, if it gets to the end of the season, he hasn't made an appearance, hopefully for him he can sort of get a quick move away and to a big club.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one because when he came in, I was obviously not excited, but I was thinking, oh, this is a bit of a mad one. But I read a few Preston fans' thoughts on him. Obviously, they were saying he's a good player. They think he'll make it in the Premier League, and they were like kind of bigging him up in a way, saying that he is good enough to do it. But then he doesn't, like you said, he's not even getting into the squad some weeks. So it is a bit of a bizarre one. But I think the longer the season goes on and he's still not getting a game, I think that's going to be, I think that is looking like it's going to be the case, isn't it, in terms of quick profit in the summer, and then hopefully put that towards, I don't know, another player or another couple of players if we've got a bit of money in the bank.
Yeah, but, it sort of says a lot as well that he was very close, wasn't he, to joining Celtic prior to that move being put together. That would 100% would have happened in the summer, if not before. I think Preston were sort of waiting for Celtic to make their offer and just get him in January, just so they could get a little bit of money in, and then Liverpool appeared out of nowhere, which they really sort of didn't expect. So, maybe he does end up going to Celtic, or if they don't want to pay the money now, I still think he'll get a decent move, and hopefully that's still in the Premier League or somewhere around there, because like you say, all the reports from Preston fans were really positive about him. So I think he's a good player in there, but obviously Liverpool's level, or the level that they aspire to be at, maybe not been at it this season, is perhaps a little higher, and Klopp's just not seen that sort of level in him in training yet.
Yeah, and I think it feeds nicely as well into the Kanate stuff, which has kind of been breaking recently. What do you make of Kanate and what you've seen of him so far? I mean, I've only seen bits, and he looks like the archetypal Liverpool centre half, doesn't he? Tall, strong, good on the ball, wins a lot of headers. What do you make of what you've seen of him so far?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I don't want to pretend that I've watched a lot of him. I don't watch an awful lot of Bundesliga football, or very infrequently. If I do watch it, it's probably Bayern, to be honest, mostly. And so yeah, not a player I know an awful lot about. I just know that Liverpool obviously really like him. He's one of a couple of options. I think I'm leaning towards the idea that although Liverpool are sort of pushing back on this, I do really think they like him. I think one of the main considerations about signing him, as it was explained to me, was the fact that not only is he's got that release clause, which I think's in the region around 40 million, isn't it? But Liverpool would have to, if they are to meet that, they would have to pay it in one lump sum. So obviously it's a huge commitment to make, isn't it? Particularly with finances the way they are. I'm still leaning towards the idea that I think Liverpool are going to trigger it. I do think they like him a lot, and they see him as a player who could have a big future at Liverpool. But it's a tough decision, and the timing of when they do that is important in terms of accounting and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think it might go on for a little bit longer, but it seems to be that the agreement's there between the player and the club. So I think it's just a case of when rather than if at the moment.
Yeah, and while we're on this, Dave, what are your thoughts on Kabak then? Because obviously I think there's an 18 mil release clause, and I've seen somewhere, might have been on Twitter, that could even be reduced to 8 million. Is that something that could be possible as well? That deal?
I've not heard anything about a reduction in the fee. I mean that if it is possible that it would be reduced to 8 million, then Schalke have probably struck the worst deal in football history, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because I think given his age, I think he's really promising player. I think Liverpool's issue is that at the moment, do they want to go into next season with 5 centre halves, because they're not going to sell Matip. They're going to or they would probably very likely struggle to sell Matip for a fee they would think is acceptable, because I think he's an absolutely brilliant centre half when he's fit. But obviously those fitness issues are going to make it difficult for them to get a big fee in for him, or a fee that they would think was worth it. Gomez and Van Dijk both to come back, and you hope will be in tip-top condition. I know they both looking good, Nick, don't they, on those running videos? That's really promising. So and then Konate, if they were to sign him, I think it's difficult to make the case that they would want a 5th centre half in, even considering that Gomez and Van Dijk might have slight issues in terms of coming back to full fitness, which you would expect given the long-term nature of the injuries. So I don't know. I'm just not on the side of things that they could sign Konate and then also go for Kabak. And I think the main consideration around him as well is the fact that although he's been he's very promising for his age, and I think he's had some really good performances, there are also moments of real naivety where he's rash in moments, isn't he? I think for Liverpool's case, it's okay, you're going to pay 18 million, which is a bargain for a player of that talent, but do you want to be the ones who give him the games to develop that further? I think that's a big call for them to make, because if Liverpool want to get back to challenging for Premier Leagues and Europa Leagues maybe next season, then they'll they need their options to be top class, don't they? They can't be putting minutes in for Kabak to make sure he eventually reaches the level. So I think at the moment I'm maybe erring on the side that they might not sign him permanently, just because I just don't think they can guarantee a young centre half the games he needs to get there.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side of that, do you think they might want to get an extra body in though, just to kind of avoid this whole situation again? Obviously, like you said, Van Dijk, Gomez and Matip are going to come back into the equation, but they may also pick up, it's bound to happen, they're going to pick up like slight injuries, so then it leaves us with Konate, and if we don't do the Kabak deal, then just Phillips and Konate. So do you think we'll have 4, the usual 4, or do you think maybe we'll try and keep 5 around just for the near future while those guys get back up to speed properly?
I think they'll go with the 4, because I think the season, as much as we were saying that we never want to see it again earlier, it is proved that Fabinho can fill in, can't he, at centre half on occasion. And I think when you've got Jordan Henderson fit, that's a lot easier of a decision to make, because you put him in as a holding midfielder, and he's the only one in the squad that's probably near to Fabinho in terms of his level in that position. And I don't think you lose too much, even though he's not maybe as good as Fabinho as a holding mid. So I think they'll hope that they just get a little bit more luck with injuries this next season. And then I think if you have Van Dijk, Gomez, Matip, Konate, or maybe another centre half that decide to go for as your 4 options, and then Fabinho there as a break glass option, you'd like to think they're not going to be in a situation next season where all 3 of them knock off with long-term knee injuries, touch wood, and they'll think that that's enough options in there. And then if they can bolster the central midfield options as well, which I think will be an important part of that does give you a bit more flexibility then, doesn't it, in terms of if you did ever need to put Fabinho back there.
Yeah, and that feeds in nicely to, I don't know how much time we've got, but I just wanted to ask you about Thiago, because did you see the Chris Bascom piece on Monday? And then I think Phil McNulty started tweeting stuff, and he got a lot of comments on it, because about Thiago not registering an assist this year, and he was basically saying that's his job, and he's kind of like he's been a failure because of that. Where do you stand on all this in terms of Thiago's numbers and his output?
Yeah, well, I'll start by saying I really like Phil. He's a really good guy. I just disagreed with him on that one, just as a footballing point. To be honest, I think obviously some of the stick he got was ridiculous, as it's social media. It's typical of social media, I suppose. He just made a football point, but I disagree with him on that one. I think where I would agree with him actually is and I thought was a fair point, was that I think we can probably say that Thiago hasn't sort of reached our expectations yet. I think every Liverpool fan was maybe really excited to see him coming in and thought he was going to dominate, and he's got the talent to do that. He's brilliant, and he has at times. He's really shown that. Some of his passing is outrageous. I think he's the most natural ball player out of any of Liverpool's central midfield options they've got. But equally, like he said, and he mentioned in that thread, for him to not be starting those games against Real Madrid, and I completely understand what Klopp was going for. It was a tactical decision. He wanted high press, didn't he? He wanted energy in there, and Thiago's more of a passer. But I still think the player would have been hugely disappointed to not be in there. He's not joining Liverpool as a Champions League winner to sit out 2 legs of a quarter final. I just don't believe that at all. So I think that speaks to the fact that he hasn't been quite what we expected, and I think there's more to come, because there are huge mitigating circumstances, aren't there? It's the injury, the COVID, settling into a new club at a time when everything is going wrong. Every VAR decision is going against Liverpool, every injury you could imagine, every player's getting that. So I think next season, hopefully, if things settle down a bit and Liverpool's luck just slightly evens out, I think we'll see a totally different player. And he'll be massively aided by having Fabinho in midfield, by the way, because I think some of his best performances have come with Fabinho just behind him, sort of sweeping things up. So I'm really excited to see that. I just don't think when we do see him at his top level for Liverpool, we won't be seeing many assists, like you say, because I think it was 2 he got in the Bundesliga last season, and he was widely regarded as the best midfielder in the world. So yeah, I'm not expecting too many assists from him. I'm just expecting some better performances and improvement. And I think Liverpool fans can expect that, because he's such a good player, really good character, really got his head screwed on, and with a year of adaptation, and like I say, just getting some players back around him, I think he's going to be a top class option. And just really excited to see him at his best, especially with fans in as well. That'll be nice.
Yeah, I think he even done I think it was an interview with Marker, and he said he can't wait for Anfield to be full, because he's one of the players that haven't experienced that as a home player. So that's going to be, like you said, that's going to be a huge one. But Alex also in the comments just said, can't get an assist if a player doesn't score. He's got insanely good vision, but does work better when he has freedom. And like you said, Dave, having Fab in midfield. I mean, I remember one distinctly chance that he created was off a free kick, and he done it with Bayern as well, where he clipped it over the top and Bobby was through on goal. And Bobby just had one of those moments where he didn't know whether to head it or overhead it or volley it or back heel it. He just caught in about 7 different minds, and he ended up taking too long. And it's stuff like that where, like you said, mitigating circumstances, injuries, and positional personnel, and then form, and then no fact. There's so many things to take into account, and I think that's what annoys me when people say this about Thiago, because if you look at his, I mean, I did a little look at his stats, and I think he's got a career high of 6 assists in one season. That's not amazing, is it? That's like, no. It's good, but like, you think De Bruyne got 20, was it last year, the year before? It's like someone like that who is further forward. I mean, Thiago can be that player, but like you said, we need the players around him to give him that support and to give him that mentally structured environment. And I think Van Dijk, Gomez, and Matip, and Fabinho, and Henderson, and those players, missing all those at the same time is unheard of, isn't it? And I think when we get those back, we're going to be a completely different side, aren't we?
I think just on the Thiago thing, actually, the perfect Thiago moment for me that sums up this assist debate is against Newcastle, when he pings that one into Salah. Salah lays it off and Jota gets the shot. Now, that doesn't show up in any metrics whatsoever, but it's the pass before the pass to the shot. So it's, like a pre-assist almost. And no one else in the Liverpool squad, I don't think, could have seen that pass or executed it with the pace and precision that he did. But it creates a big chance that Jota should maybe do better with. So, it's stuff like that I'm really looking forward to seeing. And like you say, in a more stable team, I think we will see a lot more of it. So that's another thing to look forward to next season.
Yeah, and just another one, dead quick. The goal that'll always be a goal in my mind anyway. The one like Henderson's that ball for Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
That one is just when you look at a freeze frame of that, you're like, how is he even? I mean, the ball's on, but the way he plays it and the way to pass, it's like you said, Dave. He's a joy to behold, isn't he? Sometimes the way he passes that ball. But Dan's just got to put a comment in here. Obviously, don't agree with any form of online abuse, but can I ask David if he thinks specific journalists ask for or entice want the negative reaction from some fans by their own ridiculous headlines?
I think some journalists. I mean, I literally try and avoid it at all costs. I hate. I absolutely hate it. I've got such a fragile ego that I can't take it if anyone disagrees with me. So, I think with the headlines thing, sometimes you're absolutely stuck because we say it all the time, but we don't write the headlines. I certainly don't. I work for different publications. I send over my copy and they come up with the headlines. So it's sort of not up to me. So if, I think in those cases, I think if some people could maybe show understanding and think, okay, well, I've not come up with that. And I like to think I don't write things that are, incendiary or try and wind people up. So I know some journalists will put tweets out that are sort of deliberately entice people to give them angry reactions because they don't mind that sort of stuff and they think, any sort of engagement is good. I know some people are like that because they've got thicker skin than I have, but a lot of the cases, the sub editor will have come up with a headline, so maybe the journalists don't deserve as much stick as they get, and a lot of the time as well. I always think it's worth if before you're going to share it and say, oh, the headline on this or the tweet into it is ridiculous. Just go in and read the piece and see if what the journalist actually wrote reflects what the company wrote it for, has tweeted it, or the headline they've put on it, because sometimes you just get stitched up by the way stuff's presented. So, and then if they did, if you go in and you read the piece and they did say it, all right, fair enough, get stuck into them. I'm not bothered, but otherwise, it's you just got to be sort of wary about it because people are just pretty angry on there, aren't they? And I don't think it does anyone any good.
Yeah, I think it's not funny, but like James Pearce just gets just pure abuse. Like even if, like you said, if it's kind of phrased in a way, and then he'll like reply back, going, "Have you even read the piece?" And the person will be like, "No." I was like, "Well, it's like you said, Dave. Like if you're not reading it, and if the article's not reflective of the title, then yeah, fair enough. But it's that's just Twitter for you, isn't it? It's an absolute. It's great at times, but it is a cesspit in others as well.
James got a load of stick for a piece he wrote about in the build when the draw had been made for the Champions League quarterfinals, and he wrote something about Salah and Ramos and all that situation, and he'd used a Klopp quote in the headline, which was about, well, he may not have even come up with the headline in fact, but his intro was about Klopp calling Ramos a wrestler, and that made it into the headline, and it was his intro as well, and people were like, he was getting absolutely leathered with people going, why are you still crying about this? Okay, so Liverpool have drawn Real Madrid in the Champions League again for the first time since the final, where that was the big talking point of the final, and people are asking him why he's still crying about it. He's not. He's writing about it because it's interesting, a throwback to that game. And the wrestler bit was what Jurgen Klopp said. James didn't say it. So I just sometimes I don't know what you can do about that, because he's every right as a journalist to write about that, hasn't he? Because that's the interesting point of the game. It's the throwback to the last meeting. So stuff like that's frustrating. I suppose sometimes if I tweet something out and I know people are going to take it the wrong way, I just mute it. So, that's fine. That's probably the best way to go about it, I think.
Yeah. Well, Dave, actually, I could talk about this for hours, but we're getting on for 33 minutes here, and we haven't actually touched on the match that much, have we? So,
what? There's a match on? What?
I know, yeah. Fucking hell. To be honest, we're gonna say we usually do like a live team news reaction and match review straight after, but obviously with all this blackout stuff, we're gonna join in with that. So we're gonna do ours on Monday. But we'll kind of wrap it up a little bit there. But I just wanted to ask you, who would you start then for Sunday? Would you, if it was your team, would you go front four and just go fuck it, let's just get at them, or would you play it quite conservative? Like I think we all know Klopp's going to do, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's going to go conservative, and I think there's some sense in it. In if Nat Phillips is available, fingers crossed he is. That would really give you then the ability to sort of give that platform of Milner, Thiago, Wijnaldum, wouldn't it? That's a midfield that we've seen recently has played well. I think Milner is really important to get in there in terms of his leadership, and he's really good in terms of the press as well. So that could be really handy to get in there. So I think the manager will see it that way and will want to go down that route and then go with the front three. If Nat Phillips isn't there, then maybe that's the sort of thing that pokes him over the line and says, "Oh, let's just go for it." But yeah, I think he'll lean on the side of conservatism because it's just generally in his makeup.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would love us to go for it and put that bad, horrendous record to pay and just absolutely batter them. But I know how good United can be as well. They are a good side, unfortunately. But it's a good thing that they've got no fans there. So even if they do something good this year, there's no one there to experience that. That's. I mean, that might be mean of me, but who cares? What have you got for the score predictions, Dave? What are you reckoning then?
To be honest, I think Manchester United will win.
No.
I don't go there with much hope this time. I think Liverpool's the issues with this Liverpool team are just too deep rooted and won't be solved until some players are back in there. So, and I think United, they're not phenomenal, but they're a very good side at the moment. And this season, they deserve to be where they are, to be honest. So, them being at home, I think United will win. I think they'll maybe 2-1 or 3-1 even.
I'm gonna go for 1-1. I think. I just think
I take that all day.
Yeah, I know, that's what I mean. But I agree. I always think United are going to win at Old Trafford. I mean, it doesn't happen. I mean, I was going to say it doesn't happen often, but we just kind of seem to get a mental block. Like even when we've got fully fit, I feel like Trent sometimes just has like a bit of a mental block there, and he doesn't quite play his normal game. And I think it's the same for most of the players. I think it's just that environment, and even like obviously even with no fans, I still think it's still a difficult place to go, isn't it? So yeah, I think I'm just gonna hope for 1-1, but also silently pray that we get like a last minute winner and it's like 2-1 or something like that, and we can.
You never know, just because you've gone there with Liverpool teams in recent years and thought they should wipe the floor with them here,
Yeah.
and like you say, they've just sort of seemed to have a freeze in that moment. So maybe this is the one they rock up and they're playing absolutely terribly, and United are flying a little bit and they just wipe the floor with them now. So like that, you never know, do you?
Yeah, well, Paul's gone for 1-1. Dan has gone for 3-2 to Liverpool, and he's gone for a decent little start 11 there. Said thanks for your response as well.
That would be an insanely stressful game, wouldn't it? 3-2.
Oh, I know. That's the thing when I do these predictions and people are going, I reckon 4-4 I'm like, fucking hell, don't be jinxing it like that. I can't take 4-4. Fucking hell. Stressful enough season as it is, isn't it? But Dave, nice one. We'll leave it there. Nice one again for jumping on. If you haven't checked out Dave's stuff, you can see his Twitter tag on just underneath his screen there. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Nice one again, Dave, for jumping on. We'll be back on Monday for the match review, hopefully celebrating not a 3-1 loss, but maybe celebrating a 1-1. I don't know. Just don't lose, and I think that's the mentality going to the Old Trafford. Just don't lose, and we'll be all right. But yeah, thanks again to Dave, and thanks everyone in the comments for jumping in, and we'll see you on Monday.